Ready to have a deeper conversation about body and soul, sacred leadership, and our collective evolution? Welcome to the Wise Body Ancient Soul podcast with me, your host, Charisse Sisou. The other day, I was having a beautiful, intimate conversation with two dear friends and colleagues. One had a sensitive question about flirting. She and her husband had made great friends with another married couple, and they were spending tons of time together. She flirted easily with the male counterpart of their new friends, and then started to worry. Would a line be crossed? Was she being too much? Now, mind you, no lines had been crossed. No secret meetings or anything untoward had happened, or would. In fact, Joel, let's call him that, would do stuff with Amy, let's call her that her husband wouldn't do, like attend the local ballroom dance class, like without having to drink first. The conversation would go like this. All four are at dinner on Friday night. Amy announces to the table, Joel, salsa, Thursday. And Joel says, deal. What time? As far as I could tell, the flirting was equal opportunity. Everyone enjoyed everyone's company. And no, not like in a swinging, wife-swapping kind of way, although I have no problem with that when all parties enthusiastically consent. They were flirting the way I define flirting, thoroughly enjoying themselves in the company of each other, with no ulterior subterranean motive. And oh yes, it's sexy and playful and fun. Does it mean that she's drawing away from her husband? No. Does it mean that her pleasure flirting with one robs her relationship with the other? No. To flirt is to shine your whole light in the presence of another, to allow them to witness and play in your radiance. That's it. Your light includes every aspect, including your sensuality. This is all about your joy in your skin. And this is what was happening. And Amy was starting to feel uncomfortable with just how much fun she was having flirting with this guy. She was feeling affirmed in her attractiveness as a woman, her magnetic power, and it was starting to freak her out. I was reminded of a young, doe-eyed woman who took my belly dance in the art of flirtation workshop at an outdoor yoga festival years ago. When I asked if anyone had any questions, she shouted out, "Yes, can you keep going? I don't want this to end." She hugged me after the workshop, confessing, "I haven't felt like this since before my babies were born." It's like we get to a certain point in our lives or relationships, or what have you, and we're like, oh, no more of this flirty thing. Let's put those things away, right? And this is what was happening with Amy, even though she was feeling the benefits of it, right? So we've been taught since we were little that there's something unseemly about an openly flirtatious woman. A flirtatious man, on the other hand, is a charmer. A lady killer, even. We won't even dive into the repercussions of that term, but a flirtatious woman is quote unquote asking for the wrong kind of attention. Less than. She's even dangerous. She is shamed for being so outspoken in the public display of her pleasure, for enjoying the innocent spark and interplay between herself and another person. Keyword, innocent. I do feel like there's less of an overarching like societal push around this, and we still seem to have this idea that like flirtatiousness is the realm of the young woman who's looking for a partner, or the young person who's looking for a partner, right? But I'm speaking specifically about this like interplay with the feminine body, because of course we have so many stories that we're told about it. And then over a certain age, then you're like a cougar or a MILF or a whatever, or any number of terms which have a variety of ranges of, whether they can be taken as a compliment or not, right? Like I embrace these terms, and it's also a little bit like why? Why do we have to categorize her? Like, why isn't it just like, oh, look at her having fun and being human, right? So I'm always reminded of that scene in the movie, one of my favorite movies, The Witches of Eastwick, when Susan Sarandon's character is meandering through her shopping. And as she's going through this grocery store, she's saying out loud, oh my God, like how delicious these cookies are. Double chocolate are to die for. And squeezing and smelling the fruit. And you can just see like the trail of like people responding to her kind of like mouth open, because she's just like moving through this grocery store in her body, in her pleasure, like interacting with everything using all of her senses. She's in ankle socks and heels, a pink tank dress, and little else. She is a woman thoroughly in her pleasure, and she's literally flirting with everyone in sight and the produce, right? This is not unlike me at the grocery store, actually. But at the register, the cashier hisses under her breath, "Slut," punctuating the last T. Susan drops her basket and backs out of the store. It's a little town that she's lived in, right? Like her whole adult life. And she's never been as free as in that moment. And there's other stuff going on in the plot too, of like why the women are reacting to her that way. Another woman, like as she's leaving the store, is like, oh my God, she's not wearing a bra. Ah, you know, you have to think about like when this movie was made as well. But it's this idea that she's too much and she's punished for it, right? But flirting is also an act of vulnerability, right? It's putting ourselves out there, right? And this is like, you know, it's interesting because like I think about, I'm always this kind of like soulful strategist of, you know, this isn't just about life. It's also about our work. It's also about our business. And, you know, there is not a lot of difference really between kind of like flirting and putting yourself out there as there is like putting yourself out there as like an expert in your field, or, hey, come work with me. I've got something really yummy and good going on over here. Like, you want to party with me? Like, you know, let me be your coach, your guide, your strategist, your mentor. And so it's like that same kind of vulnerability where you're putting yourself out there and you don't know how it's going to be received, right? And there's this piece that's like, you have to stop caring about how it's going to be received and focus instead on, does this feel good? Is this feeling good in my body for reals, right? Not should it feel good, or I'm supposed to like this, or any of the other things that we tell ourselves, but simply being in our pleasure, smelling that piece of fruit and going, oh my gosh, that's intoxicating, right? So there are limits, basically, right? But limits placed on a woman's flirting. It's tolerated when she's young and single, as I was talking about that before. But when she's of a certain age or married or a mother, she believes she must put such foolish behaviors away and get serious. Besides, her mother didn't flirt, right? Yeah, I beg to differ. Good girls don't flirt, right? Okay, old idea, right? And yet there's still vestiges of there, right? It's like we are in a really interesting moment in time where a lot of this stuff is being questioned, and it may be questioned like on the surface, and yet we're still negotiating these concepts in our bodies, because what we may have learned as young girls, right, is very different from what we know now. And what our ancestors passed down to us is definitely very different from how we feel now, until you go a little bit further back in time when perhaps a woman's body was revered versus vilified, right, versus seen as an ongoing project. So, which brings me back to why flirt? Right? Why flirt? If you're no longer trying to attract a mate, right, which is a totally valid use of this skill set, right? Why continue flirting when that's done? Aside from with your partner, right, to keep that spark alive. For me, to ask why flirt is the same as asking, like, why meditate? Why eat a nourishing meal? Why move your body? Flirting is as important to our well-being as any of these things, because pleasure is like food for the woman's soul. Truly, it's like food for anyone's soul, but there is something really magical when you have a woman who is well sourced, who is in her pleasure. She is magnetic, irresistible. Flirting is the simple act of being in your pleasure, owning your own beauty in the presence of another human being, being totally and fully present in your sensual, feminine body. Because your body doesn't end at your fingertips or the bottoms of your feet or the top of your head. Your body casts its energetic glow over everyone whose path you cross. I learned this on stage as a belly dancer, right? The dancers who captivated me, who held my gaze above all others, were not necessarily the ones with the most experience, that master dancer who could isolate a single muscle or send a wave of emotion with a crease of her brow. I could be just as captivated by a baby belly dancer, rocking the 3 moves that she knows. The key was her total groundedness in her body, her comfort and rampant joy in her own skin. And to be honest, I would often see this, more often I should say, in older dancers. And they're really there because they're enjoying themselves and they're doing it for themselves, right? It's so hot. It's so amazing. It's captivating, just absolutely captivating. Whether it's a happy or a heartbreaking song, right? It's like the pleasure of being in her body and that unadulterated expression. Her total lack of attachment to whether we paid her any mind. Ultimately, this was for her, not you. You just had the privilege to witness her. When I started experiencing this in my own dance, it was like I reached a whole other level, and I knew it. When I was able to get on stage and not give one whit about how people were reacting to me. My only question was, how does my body long to proceed? Am I in my body? Okay, yes. Listening for that moment in the music where I really wanted to start dancing. Not because I should start dancing because I'm on stage. Do you know what I mean? It's a completely different way of living in the body and with the body, really tuning into, her presence and feeling. It wasn't until I gave up that need to please, gave up my attachment to what reaction or accolades I might get through my performance, fostered my own ease and enjoyment in my body, and showed up as myself without apology, that I really began to own the stage. I've been on stage since I was 4 years old in various forms. I didn't start taking belly dance until I was 30. So sometimes people think I was like a belly dancer as a young kid. Oh no, I was an adult with children. But I, played the flute, I played the piano, I was a musician, I was a singer, I was all these things. And so I have a real comfort, a real poise on stage. It doesn't completely knock me out of myself. And yet, and even so, with all that experience, I still had all of my, will you love me? Will you love me? Will you approve of me? The people pleasing, the approval seeking, the not wanting to be judged, etc., etc., etc. I know I'm not alone in this. And what I can say is when I really stopped caring about what other people thought and just focused on being in my pleasure and so present in that on the stage, right? It shifted everything. And whether my audience was, just a handful of people or hundreds, I was captivating. And it's not just me, by the way. Every person has access to this magic. Flirting is how I keep my juices flowing. When I flirt with, the lovely lady handling my order behind the desk or behind the cash register at Panera, or the busboy at the local taqueria, or wherever I'm going, I have no desire or intention to take anyone home with me. In real life, I can fantasize whatever I want, right? But I'm quite happy in my relationship. It's not about that. I don't even really expect or intend for anyone to shower me with extra services, although yes, that happens, by the way, when you show up in your pleasure and you're just like happy to see someone because you're happy to be yourself. You will get extra bonus stuff. I'm just saying. That's I have so many stories about that I will share separately, but that's just a side perk. It is their privilege to witness you in your pleasure and maybe even flirt back, but there is no expectation or attachment. The point isn't some end result, right? That I'm using my behavior to kind of like mold someone into providing. You know, it's not manipulative. It is about presence. It's, you know, the point is the act itself, the act of flirting, which in and of itself is totally innocent. Flirting, I believe, is a spiritual act. It's an expression of generosity, beaming your sacred presence at another human soul. It is a ritual of abundance, right? There is more than enough of me to go around, my friends. Right? You know, I don't have to keep it all in or be worried that I'm too much, you know. It is an unveiling of your pleasure and presence. It is a practice for tapping your infinite feminine power. And, you know, when I talk about that, I'm talking about feminine energy, which is something that we all have access to, right? Whatever body we're in, however we identify. Flirting, it turns you on, it recharges your batteries, it keeps you in the vortex, it fills your cup. Because you, my love, by flirting, fill the cups of everyone who encounters you. And there is no shame in that. It's a freaking public service in my eyes. You flirting make the world a better place. I say that in total seriousness. And now I dare you. I dare you to try it. Flirt in the most unlikely of places. Flirt without wanting anything at all. Flirt for the fun of it. Flirt just to, you know, if that skill set gets rusty, and I'll be honest, like it does for me too. I go through cycles, right? It's normal, just like the waning and the waxing of the moon. We have our cycles where we want to be out there, and we have our cycles where we're more inward, right? And that is A-okay. And, right? And so it's not about being out all the time. But when you are in that outward cycle, when you are in that cycle of like, ooh, I have this like frisson of energy that I want to share, you know, or let me put it this way, like you want to say something, but you're like holding back, right? Like maybe you want to compliment someone on how their hair looks, or you just want to like say something nice or say something sarcastic or funny or make a funny observation, and you like hold back, right? And what I would say is like, don't hold back. Okay, this is the art of flirtation. The art of flirtation is not holding back when what wants to speak is just the expression of our beautiful multidimensional selves, right? There is nothing wrong with that. I'm saying this out loud for me too, okay? Because, you know, it's like, I believe this and it's a practice. It is a practice. It's a practice. I say this because, you know, yeah, we don't always feel beautiful and exuberant, right? Sometimes we feel freaking crappy. Often, I might add, especially nowadays, right? There's just so much going on. And what I can tell you is, oh my gosh, that's so funny. I just got like a bing confirmation from the universe. That is the best time to flirt. I remember hearing a story this one woman shared with me where, oh, she was having a bad day, a bad day. Like she had had some kind of something, like I think I don't know if she'd like broken her nose or had some kind of injury to her face. So her nose is all black and blue. She's like, it's like taped over. no makeup. She's in like slouchy yoga pants, and she like goes to get herself a coffee at the local cafe. And then she sees the most beautiful person in line. And she was like, oh shit. And she just decided, because she had been immersing herself in exactly the same mindset, right? Around like, flirt when you don't feel like it, right? Like it can be a way to get those juices flowing, a way to tap that, that part of you that knows how freaking radiant and amazing you are, right? Even when you're not feeling it. And so she like, yeah, of course she heard all the voices that were like, oh my God, oh my gosh, like, why did, and she went up to this person anyway and was like, hey, and just flirted exactly in the state that she was in, unshowered, in her yoga pants, with a freaking bandage across her nose. Like, what? And do you know they ended up freaking engaged? I kid you not. And it's like, because here's the thing, right? Here is the thing. We also tend to like lump all of these things together, like around physical appearance, attractiveness, energy. What I can tell you, it's all about energy. It's all about energy. And so, of course, not only was it like impressive that she was flirting, that made an impression. Like, look at the ovaries on this chick, like coming up to me and having a conversation with me, like not looking her best. Like, imagine her looking her best. You know what I mean? So anyway, take that story as you will. But it inspires me to just remember and remind myself, like, hey, it's so great to do this when you're at the top of your game and you're like sharing that overflow of yummy, juicy feeling with the people around you. And this helps you get to that state, right? And it is so great to practice when you're like, just to remind yourself, like, yes, this is who I am. This is who I am. You may find that once you let your flirting genie out of the lamp, you may never want to send her back into hiding. I'm just saying, if this is feeling like totally outside your comfort zone. But yeah, I'm just putting it out there. Like, where could a little more flirting light up your day and someone else's day? The next time you're in the drive-thru, right? The next time you're looking in the mirror at yourself, throw yourself a little wink, flirt with yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, I truly believe in the power of flirting. Thanks for joining me on Wise Body, Ancient Soul. I hope it reminds you how powerful and magical you truly are. If you're looking to connect more deeply with the wisdom your body and soul carry, it would be my honor to guide you. Check out my website to learn how else we can play together. And if you feel so moved, kindly subscribe, rate, and review this podcast so more juicy light bringers like you can hear these transmissions. Here's to your joy and wild success. From my heart to yours, I love you. Take what you need and pass it on.